the past 5 days of so-called riots. I want to distinguish the riots from the protests. I want to distinguish the riots from the protests. The protests were led by us. The protests were led by black people. The riots were led by white people. The protests were led by black people. The riots were led by white people. This is a very important distinction to make. It is a very important distinction to make. Now, let me first say this. We as a people, particularly the American African, particularly here, it applies universally. We are Pan-Africanists, so we speak to the whole race. But for those Africans in America, this particular nation of 50 million, this particular nation of 50 million better learn how to struggle by ourselves. Although we are not responsible for the white riots that took place these past 5 days, although we are not responsible for the riots that took place these past 5 days, we are responsible for the ideological atmosphere that allowed them to exist. We are responsible for the ideological atmosphere that allowed the riots to exist in the first place. See, we are colorblind to a fault. We are multicultural to a fault. We, have this fear of fighting an all-black fight. We have this fear of standing alone and being by ourselves. And because we have this fear of standing alone and being by ourselves, any other group in this country can come amongst black people and redirect a black agenda and turn it into a white agenda, turn it into an anti-African Latino agenda. And when I say anti-African Latino, I'm speaking of those Latinos who do not identify with the African race. I'm talking about those clearly African Spanish-speaking Latinos who don't identify with us. I'm not speaking about the millions who do. I'm not speaking about the millions who do. I'm speaking about the ones who don't. But any other group, LBGT, it doesn't matter what the focus is. Any other group can come amongst us and manipulate our struggle for their own political gain because they know that we never want to struggle alone. They know that black people never ever want to be by themselves. If we were unapologetically African, those white folks could have never infiltrated the 2020 black protest for justice. If we were truly about self-determination, there's no way those Europeans could have came in and manipulated and undermined and sabotaged the 2020 black protests for justice. Because what we would have done is we would have had security who, had they come across any non-African, would have respectfully, politely, but firmly told them, you cannot join this march. We would have told them. We would have told them, you cannot join this march. This is an all-African affair. And if the white folks were to ask you, why can we not join this march? You can politically and respectfully educate them as to why they cannot be in this march. There are three main reasons as to why they cannot join the march. Number one, there are 50 million Africans in America, but there are nearly 250 million whites in America. There are 50 million Africans in America, but there are nearly 250 million whites. They outnumber you 5 to 1. That's not including the brothers in prison. If we subtract them from the 50 million, that 50 million gets even smaller. So if you allow a population of 250 million to integrate and amalgamate and assimilate, if you allow a population of 250 million to infiltrate, assimilate, and amalgamate into what is supposed to be an all-black struggle, they can take it over. Their sheer numerical power alone can dilute your struggle, undermine your struggle, sabotage your struggle, and redirect your struggle for somebody else's gain. This is not about hating anyone. This is about loving yourself and your agenda enough to protect it until the goal has been achieved. It is about loving your agenda enough to protect it until the goal has been achieved. A disorganized group of 50 million American Africans have no business allowing a much more organized group of 250 million whites to come amongst you and sabotage your movement. So then, the first reason you can't join this is because you guys outnumber us. If too many of you get involved in this, this is no longer a black struggle. It is a white struggle purely by the numbers. Purely by the numbers, it becomes a white struggle. Purely by the numbers. 250 million compared to 50 million. Are you out of your mind? 250 million compared to 50 million. Are you out of your mind? Reason number 2. How y'all doing, ladies?
God bless you. I didn't mean to point at you, sir.
Oh, no, that's all right. That's all right.
Keep doing everything that you're doing.
I appreciate you, sweetheart. Thank you. Thank you, sweetie. Black women are beautiful, but let me refocus. Black women are beautiful, but let me refocus. A couple Dr. Papa supporters. Reason number 2 why white folks cannot struggle with us is because it is disingenuous for members of the white power structure. It is disingenuous for members of the white power structure. It is disingenuous for members of the white power structure to come amongst the oppressed and struggle with us when you should be in the big house struggling against your own political masters. Why do you have to come amongst us? Why do you have to join in on the oppressed? Why do you have to come amongst the oppressed to struggle when you are already a privileged white person? If you really care about black oppression, you don't come to the ghetto and march. You don't come to the ghetto and march. If you really care about black oppression, you will go amongst your own community, your own institutions, your own system, and you will struggle against your own people. Why would you leave? Why would you leave the seat of power? Why would you leave the seat of power where the decisions are made, the resources are distributed, the opportunities are determined? Why would you leave that and come all the way down to the ghetto and struggle with the powerless when you are a member of the powerful? Explain that to me.